Hey y'all, today we're going to be talking about domain and range and how it looks on a graph. This is a pretty difficult concept to grasp, so I've done 6 different examples here for us to practice. Basically, what you're going to be doing here is you're given a graph and you're going to be asked to find the domain and range. And then you're going to be given the opposite. You're given the domain and range and then asked to draw the graph, okay? So we're going to start with the easier one, which is you're given the graph and you're asked to find the domain and range. Okay, so let's start with this first top one right here on the left, okay? What you want to do is you want to look horizontally and you want to look vertically, okay? So you want to look at just the domain. What is going on the x's, okay? So just from left to right, where is my function at, okay? My function starts here. I'll start looking left, okay? I know that it starts here at -1 with my domain. So I'm going to write my D. I'm going to say it starts at -1, okay? Then it keeps going through -1 and it stops at +3. +3. So I know my domain is in between -1 and +3. Now, these points right here are very significant. Okay? If they are filled in point, that means that it includes 1 and it includes 3. So we need to use something that shows that those are included. So what we say here is x is greater than or equal to -1 and it's less than or equal to 3. So this is telling me that my x values are between -1 and 3, and it includes the -1 and 3 because we have those equal to signs. Okay? If we didn't have those equal to signs, it'd be an example like here where we have open circles. Alright? So that is our domain, strictly left to right. Okay? Horizontal. Okay? Now we look at our range. So now we're looking up, down, this way. So you can start it at the bottom or at the top. It doesn't matter, but I like to start at the bottom. Okay, so I start looking, all right. So my first place I touch my function is at -2. Okay, and then I keep going. It goes all the way up to +3. Okay, again, these circles are filled in. Okay, so that means they're equal to -2 and +3. And all your y values are in between that. So your y values are greater than or equal to -2 and less than or equal to +3. Okay? So that is how to find your domain and range on a graph that looks like this. Okay, now we're moving on to one that looks almost exactly the same, but now we have open circles. Okay? That means it doesn't include that point. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to first start with the domain. So I like to look left, right for my domain. I notice that it starts at -1 and it finishes at a +3. Okay, so -1, maybe not 3. It's a little bit closer to 2. I didn't draw this one exact, but it's somewhere in between 2 and 3. So we'll just use 2. So it's in between -1 and +2, okay? Those are open circles, so it does not include -1 and +2. It includes everything between -1 and +2. So we're going to use different signs in these, okay? We're going to use just the less than and just the greater than sign. Or yeah, just those signs right there, because it's not equal to. So x is greater than -1, so everything to the right of -1. And it's less than 2. Everything to the left of 2. Okay? So we do not have our equal signs if it's an open circle. So closed circle, equal signs, open circle, not equal signs. Okay? And you can have a combination of both. Okay? One can be open, one can be closed. Alright, so our range, we're looking top to bottom. Okay? So our range, we see it starts at a +2, or we can go to the bottom. -2 to +2. So -2 to a +2. Our y values are in between those two 2's, the -2 and the +2, and they are open circles, so we're going to say y is greater than -2 and less than +2. Okay, so we have one more example, and this is what a typical function looks like, and we've already graphed this on our calculator, okay? So we start looking left to right. It has arrows on it, so those arrows tell me that it's going to keep going forever that way and forever this way, okay? So my domain is going to be every number that way and every number this way, and we classify that saying it will be all real numbers. Okay, so my domain are all real numbers. Any number I plug in that's a real number, you're going to be able to use for the domain. Okay? Okay, now for the range, we're going all the way up and all the way down. So the domain of this function that is graphed here has also, the range has all real numbers. Okay, so these are pretty easy. We know it's going to go forever up and down and forever left and right, so it's all real numbers. Okay, now, 3 examples of the opposite. We're given the domain and range, and we're asked to graph. Okay? So you're going to have to really start thinking outside the box a little bit here. You're going to have to look at them. You're not going to be able to draw immediately. You're going to have to process the domain and process the range. Okay? So the domain of this graph is all real numbers. So that means that I'm going to go forever left and forever right. Okay, so it's going to be a line that has arrows at the end of it. Immediately is what I think whenever I see all real numbers. Okay, now my y value is less than or equal to -1. Less than or equal to -1. That means I can't come above this point with my line. Okay, so if it's less than or equal to -1, can it be -1? Absolutely. And my domain is all real numbers, so you can draw a line that looks like this. Okay? Is my domain all real numbers? Does it go forever left and right? Absolutely. And is my y less than or equal to -1? Yes. Okay. Now, does that mean that there could also be a second possibility to this one? Absolutely. Okay? You could also draw this line and it work for this domain and range also. Okay? So both of these are correct answers to this, just as long as my line stays below the y point of -1. All right, move on to this one right here. The domain is between -1 and +3. So my x is between -1, so I got to stop here somewhere, and +3. I got to be in between those 2 points. And they're not equal to them. You notice that my signs don't have the equal signs on them. So I'm going to have open circles here. All right? And my y value is equal to a +2. So for every x value I have, my y value has to be, a -2. Okay? So then everything has to be on y equals -2. So I'm going to have an open circle at +3, an open circle at -1, and it's everything between that, and it's at y equals -2. Okay? So that is the graph of this domain and this range. Between -1 and +3, it doesn't equal them, and it has to equal y equals -2. Okay? Alright, last one. Domain and range, right here. Okay, we see that we have our less than or equal signs on both of them. So we know we're going to have filled in dots. Okay? We know our domain is between a -2 and a +2, and my range is between a -3 and a +3. Okay, so we have to have something that fills that in. Okay, so I can put a point here and here. And okay, so this shows me that I'm between -2 and +2. And then also between -3 and +3. Okay, is there another answer to this question? Absolutely. Okay, you can also do your slope the opposite way. Okay, so you have this point here and this point here through that way, that is a second option to your answer. So both of those answers work just as long as you're between -2 and +2 on your domain and -3 and +3 on your range.